Hello, friends. Welcome to Akumnak Live, and I am Chandrakant. Today, we want to basically discuss a very important event from our recent history. We will have a special guest explaining the events which led to India-Pakistan war in 1971. Before we start our discussion, I must tell you that there is a giveaway. Please stick around to this outstanding show. We will tell you in the end how you can get your free. Welcome back, friends. And today we will be discussing about formation of Bangladesh. And for this discussion, let me invite our guest today. His name is Mr. Jeet Bhatt, and he is joining us from Ahmedabad. He is also practicing lawyer in Ahmedabad High Court. So, without further ado, let me present Mr. Jeet to you.
Hello, Chandrakant. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me on your show. And today we are going to discuss one very important aspect with regards to the independence of Bangladesh becoming a separate and autonomous country in the year 1971. So we'll discuss about the history and how things turned out and what led to the independence of Bangladesh and some international law aspects of the entire episode that happened.
Absolutely, Jeet. In fact, Bangladesh was not called Bangladesh; it was called East Pakistan, and there was a battle between India and Pakistan. And post that battle, the Bangladesh was formed. So, over to you. You can explain to the viewers what is the international implication of carving out a new country after the war.
Yes, Chandrakant, absolutely. As you said, after the independence and two dominions, being India and Pakistan, having been created, the entire state of Bengal was divided into West Bengal and East Bengal. And East Bengal at that time had voted to remain with Pakistan because of the Muslim two-nation theory, which they had accepted. And this resulted into East Pakistan becoming a union with West Pakistan. And it wasn't called as Bangladesh at that time. But apart from all of them being Muslim, there was no cultural, linguistic unity between East Pakistan and West Pakistan. In fact, Bengal had contiguity as well as traditional and also historical and cultural similarity with Bengal. So there was going to be problem from the initial days, as the first problem which emerged was with regards to language, because West Bengal was, West Pakistan was having four different provinces which had four different languages, whereas East Bengal was having Bengali as the main language. So therefore, there were disputes and there were leaders who wanted Bengal as the main language for East Pakistan, which was denied by West Pakistan. This led to the linguistic disturbance in East Pakistan. And also, it was seen during the first 20 years after partition and after East Pakistan becoming the union of with the Pakistan, they were ignored and their demands were not met. In fact, West Pakistan was mostly dominated by the feudal lords, and they had more in common with the Arab world, and they completely ignored the demands of East Pakistan. In fact, even in the 1965 war, it was felt that the entire army was reserved and kept by West Pakistan, and East Pakistan was completely neglected at that time. And they were having this insecurity that if the Indian Dominion had attacked or tried to enter into the East Pakistan, there was no provision for security. But however, as things turned out, they at that point in time did not demand for a separate country. But there was growing insecurity and there were growing dissatisfactions with the Western Pakistan frontiers. But in 1969, there was a military rule in Pakistan, and General Yahya Khan was appointed as the general of military. And under his regime, they wanted to hold free and fair elections, and he declared the elections to be held in 1970. But in 1970, before the elections, there was a major flood in Bangladesh, which resulted into the death of around 10 lakh people in East Pakistan. And at that time also, the Western Pakistan did not support. In fact, East Pakistan had to seek help from India, and India supplied an amount of rupees 50 million at that time and also truckloads of essential commodities. In 1970, when the General Yahya Khan had announced the elections, it were held, and there were two national assemblies, one in West Pakistan and one in East Pakistan. And West Pakistan consisted of around 143 seats, whereas East Pakistan had 169 seats. And even population-wise as well as area-wise, East Pakistan was larger than West Pakistan. But in the election, what happened is there was a complete sweep by the Awami League, whose leader was Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and he was a very popular face in Bangladesh, that is East Pakistan at that time. And that party won completely. They won 167 seats out of 169 seats. And the PPP party, which was ruled by Zulfikar Bhutto, won only 83 seats out of 140 seats in West Pakistan. So certainly PPP did not have the majority. In fact, the Awami League of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman had the majority. And it was very likely that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman would become the prime minister of the entire Pakistan. Now, this was obviously not liked by the Western Pakistan to be ruled by East Pakistan and having a prime minister from East Pakistan. So certainly Yahya Khan and Zulfikar Bhutto did not want this to happen. And therefore they started to delay the 6-point program, which was being demanded by the East Pakistan. Now, this 6-point program, what they were demanding was to have some autonomy with regards to West Pakistan, and also regards to having a democratic reforms in the Eastern Pakistan region. They also wanted their own currency, their own fiscal, financial autonomy, and which was completely unacceptable to West Pakistan. But now with this type of victory in the elections, West Pakistan could not have denied these demands, these genuine demands of the East Pakistan. But since they did not want to do it, on 16th of March, Yahya Khan traveled to Dhaka and said that we will deal with this later, but you control your internal peace and tranquility, because there were demands and resistance against West Pakistan, and there were also demands of declaring themselves to be independent if Mujibur Rahman was not declared as the Prime Minister of Pakistan. On 25th March 1971, General Yahya Khan appoints Tika Khan as the governor in Bangladesh. Now he comes on 25th March along with several other generals and tells Yahya Khan that you give me 1 week, I will bring everything under control in East Pakistan. On 25th March 1970 at around 11 p.m. in the night, the army is unleashed upon the people of East Pakistan, and there was an absolute genocide, killing every civilian, students, teachers, and it was a massacre of the greatest amount which is never seen post Second World War. People in lakhs and lakhs of were killed, butchered. In fact, it is estimated that around the genocide which happened from 25th March, around 10 lakh people were killed, brutally killed by the Pakistani army. In fact, villages were burnt. There was airstrike in more than 15,000 villages at the time. And there was a lot of refugee issues because they were targeting the Hindu people who were settled in East Pakistan. And there was people started to migrate into India. And in that time, it is estimated that around 1 crore people from Bangladesh entered into India. Though at that time, India did open its gates and allowed the refugees to enter, and there were hundreds of thousands of refugee camps, and India was providing them with all facilities. And it is because of this massacre that on 25th March, in the night itself, the elected representative, the leader, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, announced on radio of Chittagong, and he said, and I quote his words, he said that this may be my last message from today. This may be my last message. From today, Bangladesh is independent, and I call upon the people of Bangladesh, wherever you are, and with whatever you have, to resist the army occupation to the last of your breath. And you must go on until the last soldier of the Pakistan occupation army is expelled from the soil of Bangladesh and final victory is achieved. So therefore, this is how Bangladesh declared itself to be independent on 26th March 1971. But this was not accepted because at that time, complete genocide and army had taken over and killing spree was going on. But that time, the political leaders entered India, took refuge. And in India, they declared their independence and also they formed their charter, constituting a constituent assembly to enact the constitution of Bangladesh. So it is very interesting to note that from Indian soil, they declared their charter of independence and they constituted a constituent assembly to enact their own, to draft their own constitution. So thereafter, the killings and the internal disturbances continued. India was providing help with regards to the refugees. And on 3rd December 1971, but before that, I must also say that there was a lot of international pressure. India and the leaders of Bangladesh had appealed to the world, also to the United Nations, seeking help that this sort of a military crackdown must be stopped, lives of the people must be saved. But at that time, it is very unfortunate that the United Nations did not come to the rescue of Bangladesh. And why? Because that also I'll just discuss. But there is they also appointed an ICJ, International Commission of Jurists, to investigate. But before that, what happened was even international recognition or also international help was not given neither to India nor to Bangladesh. US and Britain were supporting Pakistan, and outrightly they were giving them military support, economical support, every sort of support, which they encouraged. In fact, I would say to so that India could be curtailed, and also the Soviet help that was being given to India. So US saw India as a Soviet stooge at that time, and therefore they wanted to support Pakistan to have control over the Southeast Asian region. But because of that, they did not help the people of East Pakistan. And what happened is, even in the United Nations, they had when on 3rd December, when Pakistan attacked the Indian Air Force, Pakistan had declared an open war with India. And India, with respect to self-defend its territory and to retaliate, had also declared war. But immediately, United Nations, a resolution was moved for insisting upon a ceasefire on India. And the US moved this resolution. And if ceasefire would have been declared, then India would have to stop the retaliation. And what would have happened is that continuous killing in East Pakistan would have been continued. But it is USSR at that time which used its veto power, and the ceasefire was not allowed, and that resolution could not be passed. Otherwise, East Pakistan at that time could not have been declared to be independent. And therefore, India entered into a war with Pakistan. And it was one of the very planned war at that time, which only lasted for 13 days. And in 13 days, the Pakistani army surrendered. So on 16th December, Pakistani army surrendered. And therefore, after that, this led to the signing of the Shimla Agreement, wherein Pakistan was declared to be an independent sovereign state. But much against the international pressure which worked against India, India entered into this war, helped East Pakistan, supported their cause, and allowed them to become an independent nation. But now, this resulted into a violation of a lot of international laws. In fact, international law with regards to wars and on humanitarian laws, the law of Geneva Convention of 1947, along with the laws of The Hague, govern the rules of war. And the manner in which Pakistan undertook this crackdown of military rule in East Pakistan, and the manner in which they killed the civilians, harassed the women, they killed the students, professors, universities, was absolute violation of international law. In fact, it amounted to a genocide. And also the United Nations has come out with a genocide convention, where this is a crime against international law. In the aftermath of declaration of independence by Bangladesh, and also after the India war on Pakistan and the ceasefire which ultimately resulted in the Shimla Agreement, till that time there was no international help from any country to India or to East Pakistan. So this is how Bangladesh got its independence after India entered into a war, and after the Shimla Agreement that it declared East Pakistan as an independent sovereign nation.
Well, I think this is very interesting, Jeet. In fact, many things happened during the war. I would like to add few which I'm aware of. Number one, there was a two-front war India had to prepare for, which is east as well as on the west. And Pakistan were waiting for Chinese to enter the war, so to open a third front. So Indian government had to ensure that the third front is not opened. If the third front was opened by China at that time, then India would have definitely lost the whole thing. So it was a very successful diplomatic move by India, and that ensured that the China does not enter the war. The US actually entered the war and they sent their third fleet to Bay of Bengal. But by the time the aircraft carrier and its fleets arrived in the Bay of Bengal, the war was over, and it has never happened. 93,000 prisoners of war were taken, which was a huge defeat of the Pakistani army.
Right.
And what I've also heard is that there were a lot of propaganda going on in the West Pakistan. And the Yahya Khan never announced that their country has lost the battle to India. And for weeks they were running, in those days there used to be radio announcements. So they were doing a lot of propaganda in their own country, in the West Pakistan, which is their own country where they were in majority, that we are the war, we are winning actually for almost like 2 weeks. And in those days, people used to tune into BBC, and some of these Pakistani used to get the AIR, All India Radio. And some of the citizens of Pakistan heard the news that they have war has ended, and so many thousands of POWs has been taken, and that is when they started questioning the government. So the Pakistan citizens and the government were still disillusioned for almost like 3 weeks after the war had ended.
Yes, Chandrakant, absolutely right. In fact, the US had sent their naval strip here to the Bay of Bengal. But that time, if it would have escalated and the war had not ended, I think that would have resulted into probably a third world war, because then USSR would also have entered, and as there was a treaty with India, that USSR would help India. So therefore, in Southeast Asia, this would have resulted into a big war if India could not have stopped the war and ended in 13 days. So therefore, absolutely right. That was a big diplomatic achievement, and that achievement, the great feat, was achieved by the Indian army within 13 days. And yes, more than 93,000 Pakistani army had to surrender and were taken as prisoners of war. But the most unfortunate part of it was that all those responsible of the war were ultimately released, and there was no international trial as had happened after the Second World War, like the Nuremberg trial or the Tokyo trial. And in fact, the ICJ report, and I was just coming to, the International Commission of Jurists, which is also a prominent human rights non-governmental organization, had appointed the jurists to come out with a finding and what had happened in East Pakistan. In fact, they clearly reported that a strong prima facie case against criminal offenses were committed in international law, and namely war crimes and crimes against humanity under the law relating to armed conflicts by the Pakistani army. In fact, they also suggested that they should be held responsible and they should be punished if they are found guilty after holding an international trial. But unfortunately, the response from the United Nations was not conducive at that time. Also, the Western world did not support such a trial. And ultimately, then even the Bangladesh government also did not pursue it. And therefore, the international trial could never happen. But I think it was absolutely necessary under the international law and also for the United Nations to have held an international trial of a nature similar to Nuremberg trial and the Tokyo trial. And it was absolutely necessary because the damage that was done, and minority or ethnicity in Pakistan, East Pakistan, was almost to be wiped out by such military action. And this created great international law situation, violation of a lot of human rights and war crimes. And therefore, a trial should have been necessary at that time. But it's very unfortunate, and I think it is a failure of the United Nations at that time to uphold its prestige in Southeast Asia, which resulted into allowing the criminals to go scot-free. In fact, I was reading somewhere what happened to all those persons who were in charge of undertaking such a massacre in East Pakistan, and I was surprised to read that they became the coveted officers in West Pakistan. They were in fact granted promotions, and they entered into political lives and were the leaders of Pakistan. So it is absolutely disturbing to know that this is how they lived their life after killing so many people.
Well, I've also read, Jeet, that some of these people who were involved in the war and who committed the crime against humanity, they are living a very lavish life at this point in time. They own islands in the US and the Mediterranean and even the Bahamas, and they have all left Pakistan, and they are living a very lavish life. They were awarded for actually getting defeated by India.
Yeah, so that's the unfortunate part of this. International law could not stand up and put these infiltrators of human rights into its proper place. So yes, I agree with you that international trials should have been held.
So, Jeet, let me ask you what happened after the war was ended and the Pakistani army surrendered to India? How this country evolved as a separate nation? Do you have any information on that?
Yes, so thereafter they drafted their constitution and they become a democratic nation. And in fact, a lot of provisions of their constitution were also derived from the Indian constitution. And they have thereafter become a democratic nation and try to build and come out of the massacre that happened.
And the United Nations actually gave them the right to exist as an independent country, or was there any challenge they faced during that time?
They did face certain challenges, but later on it was accepted as a international country by the United Nations.
Well, I've also heard that the whole massacre in East Pakistan started with wiping out the minorities over there, and then it after killing so many minorities on a daily basis, their thirst for blood or human blood did not get quenched, and they started killing the Muslims, and that is when the problem actually escalated to a huge proportions.
Yes, so General Tika Khan is known as the butcher of Bangladesh, and he killed left, right, and center. He killed students, teachers, everybody, civilians, irrespective of whether they were minority or majority.
Well, I think it was a great victory for India, and it was a great event that happened for East Pakistan, which later became Bangladesh. And in fact, right now, Bangladesh is better off. As compared to Pakistan, their GDP is higher, and their country is also doing very well economically. And they are also not an Islamic country; they are a democratic country. So I think they are better off after coming out of the Pakistan, isn't it, Jeet?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, history itself has shown that Bengal was thriving. Its economy was thriving in 15th, 16th century. But it is unfortunate that thereafter it came to such a position. And in fact, even before India got independence, there was a huge famine and drought, which had resulted into killing of lakhs of people. And that time also, there was no help which reached Bengal. So it has seen its days of glory and as well as its worst days. But we just hope that it continues to become a secular, democratic, and a thriving economy.
Very good discussion we had, Jeet. In fact, it was amazing to learn some lessons from history, and I'm sure our viewers will really value what you have told them. And we will actually catch up on our session next week. But for today, thank you so much for finding time and telling us about this very important event of history. And we'll catch up next week again.
Thank you, Chandrakant, for having me. We'll see you catch up next week with some other topic.
So goodbye for today, only to catch you next week.
Thank you. Goodbye.
We have some unique Akulmek memorabilia which will make you look outstanding. The graphics on these corporate gifts are based on the global best business practices. To become recipient of one of these gifts for free, you have to watch this video till the end and provide your valuable comments. Or you can also share your experiences. The person who makes the best comment would be chosen to become a recipient of these beautiful Akulmek gift, absolutely free, delivered to your doorsteps. The winner would also get a chance to be invited live as a distinguished panelist during our next video. What are you waiting for, friends? Please subscribe Akulmek and smash that like button.